I have traveled through most states in India, barring a few. This one time that I was traveling through rural Bihar, I got down to having a chat with one of the farmers. He was getting some of his farming equipment repaired. So I asked him out of curiosity what his favorite tool was. So he looked at me straight in the face, picked up his hand, stuck out his finger, and said, "Hamra vote." Just like the plow and the hand pump have evolved from simple tools to complex instruments, so has the way that we vote. I am here today to speak to you about the way India votes and why things are changing rapidly. But before we think about the way India votes, we must think about why India votes. Why is it that people walk kilometers, sometimes on foot, to stand in long lines and cast their vote? Why is it that people get off their couches, drive to a polling booth, and stand in line on a government-mandated vacation? Every voter bears a cost to vote, a direct cost of travel and an indirect cost of time. So there must be a perceived reward for this cost. While it is true that unscrupulous candidates give money and dole-outs as a form of reward for the cost of voting, what constitutes reward is now changing. And because what constitutes reward is now changing, this has caused a paradigm shift in the way that we vote. The three primary reasons for this are a younger demographic, the internet, and changing aspirations. It wasn't until recently that the youth of this country were considered an important part of the electoral process. But history shows us that every time a younger electorate shows up at the polling booth, election results have been surprising. Let's trace back to 1975. The incumbent Prime Minister Srimati Indira Gandhi ji declared a state of emergency. She suspended and seized democracy as we knew it. This meant that there were no more civil liberties. This meant that there were forced sterilization drives on men and women. This meant that there was massive corruption because there was no transparency or accountability. The justification for this was that the Indian railways, that are notorious for being late, plied on time. There was relative economic stability and there were no political disruptions. The Indian Prime Minister, in her wisdom, thought that she had given India everything that they wanted: stability and certainty. But why is it that when she called for elections in 1977, she was voted out of power and embarrassingly lost her own seat? In the 77 elections, young people came out to vote. In fact, 60% of India came out to vote, a jump in 6% from the previous elections. This younger demographic was not willing to tolerate any more impropriety. This younger demographic wanted civil liberties. The younger voter wanted free speech. The younger voter wanted free press. The younger voter wanted transparency and accountability. India came out to vote in large numbers because the reward for the cost of voting was the restoration of democracy. Today, India's youth have become a vote bank in themselves. With 150 million first-time voters registered in 2014, 90,000 of them in every single constituency, making up 20% of the entire electorate. This isn't because we had a population explosion overnight. This is because the number of people that were eligible to vote registered to vote. In the years leading up to the 2014 elections, young people took to the streets and to the internet to protest massive corruption of the ruling UPA government. And much like in 1977, in 2014, we had a record 66% of India come out and vote, with a significant portion of them being under the age of 25. This younger demographic was not willing to tolerate any more corruption. Today, 65% of India is under the age of 35, over half below the age of 25. History has shown us that a younger voting population is less tolerant of misgovernance. And with India getting younger every single day, current and future governments will be kept in check. For the longest time, participation in politics has meant that you're either a politician, someone associated with a political party, or an activist, someone who takes to the streets and questions government action or inaction. But what about those that don't fall under one of these traditional brackets of participation? What about those that don't have the time, the means, or the luxury of protesting? The internet gives us a platform. The internet gives us a platform to voice dissent, to raise questions, and to lodge protest. It is changing what constitutes traditional notions of participation. Governments and politicians are trying hard to understand how to use the internet. Would you imagine, as close as 2 years back, sending a 140-character message to the External Affairs Minister of India, getting a reply within the hour, and getting your problem sorted shortly after? The way that we communicate with government has changed. An earlier process went such. If you had a problem, you went to your local politician or the most perceivably influential politician that you could contact. You went to him with your problem, hoped that they would solve it. If they didn't, you go back home, crib about it, and probably not vote for them in the next election. Now, however, if politicians and governments are seen not doing what is expected of them, you would take to the internet and in the nicest possible way, tell the entire world how useless they are at discharging their duties. But why is this supposed banter important? If earlier not discharging your duties meant the loss of votes from individuals and families, with the impact that the internet has on TV, print, and other media, means that governments and politicians stand the chance of losing face and vote of a significant part of the population. After all, at the end of the day, and I'm going to tell you a very closely guarded secret, all that politicians want is for you to cast your vote in our favor. Internet penetration in India went up from 4% in 2007 to 15% in 2013, and it's growing every single year. One of the greatest inventions in the entire world, according to me, was this: the invention of the printing press. Because it was the invention of the printing press that for the first time in world history removed the control of information and knowledge from the hands of the church. Because until that point, the church had a monopoly on handwriting books. In the very same way, the internet has become the great equalizer of the 21st century. It has diffused information and knowledge, making it accessible to all. People from all over India today have access to information and know what is happening all around the world. And this has an impact on what we expect from our government. Regardless of how humble someone's background may be, people in India today no longer just want roti, kapda, or makan. They aspire for a lot more. They aspire for a better standard of living. They aspire for a better quality of life, and they aspire for better access. The generation today is surrounded by success stories like Zomato, Flipkart, and Ola from India and from around the world. And while traditional job creation is still paramount, there is a sizable part of the population that expects that the government create an environment that is supportive of startups as well. There are similar aspirations building for quality of education, sustainable cities, public health facilities, public safety, given that people in India today, especially the youth, are well aware of what constitutes global best practices. While it is true that a majority of elections are fought on local issues, with the Indian voter being more informed and better equipped with information, what we expect from our government and the demands from our government are a lot more. And this has a direct impact on the way that we vote. In the 2014 elections, India overwhelmingly voted into power a prime minister who had 15 years of experience in government, who till date enjoys unparalleled popularity. But every single time the electorate feels that he may be wavering, there are questions. Every time the electorate feels that aspirations may not be met, there is dissent. It is almost as if there is a referendum every single day on the quality of his leadership and the output of his government. While it is true that we may only vote once every 5 years, with paradigm shifts in the way that we communicate with our decision makers, our constant demands, and the use and spread of the internet, the way that we participate with the system has changed forever. And so has the way that we vote. Thank you.